Welcome to the Population Assessment of Tobacco and Health PATH Study 102, Accessing the PATH Study Data. Please click on the CC button on the playbar if you wish to view the closed captioning text. This video will cover the following topics: accessing the PATH Study Data, the Biospecimen Access Program, other web resources, and information about the PATH Study data releases and updates. Now we will talk about accessing the PATH Study data. Please note that we will cover content for waves 1 to 5. First, we will note what PATH Study data are available as of October 2021. The Restricted Use Files collection has waves of data available, i.e. waves 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The Adult and Youth Parent Questionnaire datasets, Adult and Youth Parent State Identifier data, and the Tobacco Universal Product Code data are available for all 5 waves. And the Never Ever reference data are available for waves 3 and 4. Researchers can go to https://doi.org/10.386//ICP-SR36231 to begin exploring these restricted use data. The Public Use Files collection also has 5 waves of data available. The Adult and Youth Parent Questionnaire datasets are available for all 4 waves, and the Ever Never reference data are available for waves 3 and 4. Researchers can go to https://10.386/10.ICP-SR36498 to access these public use data. NADAP also has 4 waves of the Biomarker Restricted Use Files data available for use. This collection contains the collection, urine and blood, and NEQ data, collection weights for urine and blood, and panel assay data for urine and serum. It is important to note that the urine data are available for all 4 waves, while the blood and serum data are available in Wave 1. Analysts wishing to use interview data and biomarkers should request both the Restricted Use Files and Biomarker Restricted Use Files. Researchers can go to https://doi.org/10.386//ICP-SR36840 to begin exploring these restricted use data. Further, NADAP has recently made available 3 additional data collections: the Wave 4.5 Special Collection Restricted Use Files and the Wave 4.5 Special Collection Public Use Files. Both of these newer releases contain the Youth Parent Questionnaire data. Researchers can go to https://doi.org/10.386/ICP-SR37519 to explore the SCRUF data collection, and to doi.org/10.386/ICP-SR37786 to access the SCPUF data collection. And the third new study is the Master Linkage Files data collection, contains 2 data files. one MLF for the restricted use data collections, which researchers need to use when analyzing the RUF, BRUF, and SCRUF, one MLF for the public use data collections, which researchers need to use when analyzing the PUF and the SCPUF. Researchers can go to https://doi.org/10.388/ICPSR38008 to begin using the MLF data. It is important to note that all the path study data are available in SAS, SPSS, Stata, R, and delimited and ASCII text files. It is also important to note that the restricted use path study data files are available only in the Virtual Data Enclave, VDE. We will cover that in more detail later in the presentation. In addition to the DOI links for each path study data collection from the previous slides, there are other ways researchers can go about locating the path study data on the NADAP site. When finding the path study data, NADAP has a path study series page that contains a general description of all the collections in the series, related resources, and the complete list of collections and related publications. Researchers can access the series page through https://doi.org/10.386/SERIES606. Also, one can use the search bar that's available on all of the NADAP web pages to enter the related search terms and find the path study data in the search results. When choosing the path study data to use, NADAP recommends reviewing the documentation available for each collection, especially the user guides, which provides helpful information. We encourage researchers to review the data-related publications, which can help one see how others have used the path study data collections. On this slide is an image of the top half of the series page that one should see when they have landed on this via the NADAP site. There is a wealth of description text as well as resources for researchers on this page. Researchers interested in using the path study data may wonder which of the path study data collections would be most suited for their individual research needs. It is often a debate between whether they should use the PUF data or the RUF data, so many data users would benefit from reading about data restrictions for the desired data sets. It is recommended that researchers first acquaint themselves with the Public Use Files User Guide and the questionnaire. The Public Use Files User Guide details differences in the public use and restricted use files. This resource would be a helpful basis for comparison of whether the public use or restricted use files would best suit any individual research interest. Again, the Public Use Files User Guide and questionnaires detail changes from the restricted use files, such as questionnaire and derived items that were removed entirely from the PUF, questionnaire and derived items that were combined or recoded in the PUF. For the public use files, most of these changes noted occur in the adult and youth data files. A few more restrictive changes were made to the youth parent data than to the adult data to preserve respondent confidentiality. The tables of removed variables, meaning variables that have been removed from the public use files, can be found in the Path Study Public Use Files User Guide and the annotated instruments for each wave of the PUF adult and youth questionnaire data. The image shown on this slide provides a snapshot of Table 1 containing questionnaire variables entirely excluded from the PUF that can be found in PathStudy Wave 1 Adult Public Use File Annotated Instrument. The table lists the questionnaire variables and their variable descriptions. Then we have recoded variables. Variables in the public use files were recoded primarily in 3 different ways. Multiple individual variables were combined into a single variable. A single raw numeric variable was collapsed into categories. A question that asks for a person's age along with a follow-up for non-response was 2 variables but gets combined into a single variable. For variables containing data on cancers, the adult questionnaire asks about 30 different types of cancer. The RUF contains 30 individual marked, not marked variables. The PUF only contains 2 variables. One derived variable indicates lifetime cancer occurrence, grouped by cancer type, delineated to tobacco-related cancer, non-tobacco-related cancer, and one that indicates any cancer reoccurrence over the WAVE study period. The PathStudy PUF data are directly downloadable from the study website. By selecting the Download button on NADAP's study homepage for the PathStudy PUF data, researchers will be able to choose a download package for their preferred statistical package, as well as bundled documentation. Researchers who would like to download any individual files are encouraged to view individual documentation files by selecting the Preview icon under the Preview column in the Data and Documentation section of the NADAP study homepage. This action results in an in-page preview of the data documentation. In addition, researchers can download individual data files by selecting the Download button directly to the right of the Preview icon. To download data files, data users must agree to terms of use and log into or sign up for a MyData account. The MyData accounts are free and easy to use, and they offer multiple login options and user benefits. You may use an email address and create your own password, or you can use another existing method that MyData offers for login. Registering and associating your research or professional credentials can be done quickly using your Google or LinkedIn account, or your Open Researcher and Contributor ID, ORCID. MyData registrations help to register PathStudy data users for additional support and keep users up to date with release announcements and developments of the PathStudy. Now we will discuss accessing the restricted use data in the Virtual Data Enclave, or VDE. The VDE is a virtual machine launched from the researcher's own desktop but operating on a remote server similar to remotely logging into another physical computer. The virtual machine is isolated from the user's physical desktop computer, restricting the users from downloading files or parts of files to their physical computer. The virtual machine is also restricted in its external access, preventing users from emailing, copying, or otherwise moving files outside of the secure environment, either accidentally or intentionally. When your application for restricted use PathStudy data is approved, you will connect to the VDE to access the data. Since the restricted data are in the VDE, you will also perform secondary data analysis in the VDE. PathStudy data users working with data in the VDE will have access to the statistical applications like SAS, SPSS, R, MATLAB, and Stata. Any files you want to add or remove will need to be routed and reviewed through the NADAP staff. The files to be removed from the VDE should be analytic output files, not data files. We'll go more into detail about this in a little bit. When applying for access to the restricted use path study files in the VDE, the first step is to visit the study webpage for the RUF, BRUF, or SC-RUF. For reference, the URLs were provided on slide 4, 5, and 6, respectively. The next step is to read the path study documentation available on the study home pages. Please also review the details of the restrictions under Restrictions and under Notes in the study level metadata. Consult the NADAP VDE guide in the Restrictions section for more information. Then, when you are ready to apply, you will click on the Access Restricted Data tab on the NADAP's study home pages. Please note that the applications are typically approved within 5 to 7 business days. Significant updates to application materials may extend this timeline. Reading the documentation helps researchers to understand details about the path study data, such as the samples, types of tobacco asked about, and how the data were collected. A researcher may already have a research description to work from and can confirm by reading the documentation that the data they are interested in are appropriate for their research. It is possible that reviewing the documentation may also help a researcher to formulate their research description. Reading the documentation also helps researchers find the variables that they will need and confirm that sufficient numbers of cases are available. When you click on the Access Restricted Data tab, a modal box will display Guidelines for applying for restricted data. The box reminds us that the data are only to be used for statistical analysis, reporting aggregate information, and not investigating specific individuals or organizations. Then it gives a reminder that these data are restricted, that a RDUA must be completed, and that the data will be available in the VDE. Also, a link to the VDE guide is available, and when you click on it, you'll be taken to the VDE guide webpage. The VDE guide can also be accessed as text on a series of web pages. There is an option to click on a link that says, View this guide as a PDF. The guide is here to help the researcher better understand the virtual data enclave, as well as the application process to access the data, how to use the VDE, and how to eventually obtain output from the VDE. All data users must follow NADAP's rules outlined in the Data Use Agreement. After clicking on the Start Application button from the prior screen, the next screen in the application process gives the researcher steps for applying for NADAP data in the VDE. Again, there is a link to the VDE guide which says, Applicants are encouraged to review our online VDE guide. This is another opportunity to access the VDE guide before starting a new project. The Applying for NADAP data in the VDE page is there to offer an itemized list of steps for the researcher to complete. Step 1 outlines the researcher submitting documents to the ICPSR, including a completed and signed Restricted Data Use Agreement, CVs for all future VDE users, and IRB documentation indicating approval or exemption of the project. In Step 2, ICPSR review and approves the application or determines that the application needs work. The applicant would receive an email from ICPSR communicating approval or modifications to be made. In Step 3, the researcher begins to manage VDE licenses and user accounts so that their research team can access the restricted data in the VDE. Once the researcher feels confident that they understand the application process, they can go ahead and click the Start a New Project link on the bottom of the list of steps. The Create a Project screen is where you would begin to complete details about your project, including the title of the project, description, investigator information, and data selection. Please note that the field in Investigator Information that asks for terminal degree, the corresponding text underneath it explains the following. Any investigator that has no demonstrated experience using confidential data must have a sponsor currently with the investigator's institution that has the required experience. The investigator or sponsor must hold a terminal degree. If, without a terminal degree, investigators should enter No in the terminal degree box and name the sponsor in the description box above and describe the sponsor's related experience. Then, the last item on this page is to select the data, and then click on the Create Project button. Your application will be assigned a number, and this will always be your project number. The next page, titled Restricted Data Use Agreement, is a confirmation page that shows the researcher's project number and also confirms that the project has been created. It also instructs the researcher to submit a Restricted Data Use Agreement, or RDUA, which has been emailed to the researcher. If for some reason the researcher does not receive this email, they can contact NADAP at NAHDAP-VDE-SUPPORT@umich.edu. Clicking on the View Project homepage will show the researcher what their project looks like as an online application. At this stage, the application is now viewable by NADAP and ICPSR staff. If the researcher has any questions for NADAP staff, they can easily reference their last name or project number, and the online application can be viewed by NADAP staff. Required materials include completed Restricted Data Use Agreement, Internal Review Board IRB approval or exemption, and a CV or NIH BioSketch. The Restricted Data Use Agreement must be signed by the primary investigator and the institutional representative of the same institution. The institutional representative is an authority in the Office of Research or is a dean or a provost. A CV or NIH BioSketch should be submitted for everyone on the project team. NADAP staff will upload your signed RDUA, IRB approval, and team member's CV into our system. The approval email will be sent to the researcher once NADAP and ICPSR staff have reviewed and approved the submitted project. With a subject text of "Your application is approved," the email lets the researcher know that their application access to the NADAP Virtual Data Enclave Management System has been approved. A link included in this email will bring the researcher to their project account on VDE Manage, where they can begin to request user accounts and VDE licenses. User profiles for the approved project can be set up for VDE licenses on the Virtual Enclave users page shown. The project administrator can click on one of the available links to assign new user. At this point, a new screen will appear asking for information about the new user, including name, email address, home address, birthday, gender, unique name, and type of security token. The user will be sponsored through the University of Michigan's User ID system. As this is an application to get a user ID through the University of Michigan, the home address and the birth date of the user must be accurate. If there are issues with the user ID later on, the home address and birth date will be important for verification. Please note that the field that asks for unique name is the same thing as a user ID, which, can be designated by the project administrator completing the form. The type of security token automatically defaults to a selection of Android. This can be any type of personal communications device like a smartphone, ordinary cell phone, desk phone, or special security tokens that can be purchased from the University of Michigan. Having this indicated will help the data user later on when they are establishing the two-factor authentication process. The last two items of this form include attesting that the staff is affiliated with the investigator's institution and then clicking on the Create link at the bottom of the form. Two-factor authentication is an authentication method in which a device user is granted access to a website or application only after successfully presenting two or more pieces of evidence to an authentication mechanism. The University of Michigan uses Duo, a two-factor authentication app that sends a message to a smartphone, access code via SMS, or a call to a landline. The user typically approves the login attempt, enters a code, or presses a number on a landline. The user would need to enter their University of Michigan unique name and password to complete login. Here is a picture of a hardware token that can be purchased at ICPSR. Working in the VDE, researchers will find statistical programs such as SAS, SPSS, Stata, R for Windows, and machine-readable documentation programs. There are some restrictions in the VDE. Data users must follow the terms listed in their RDOA and their VDE data security plans. For example, data users must use password-protected computers, use VDE only in a secure office with monitors not visible through doorways or windows by unauthorized persons. For security reasons, the VDE prohibits users from moving or copying files into or out of their project workspace. Remember in the previous slide that the VDE prohibits users from moving or copying files into or out of their project workspace. Because of this restriction, any files you would like to move into or out of the VDE must be requested. Researchers or users must request to move files into or out of the VDE. NetApp will vet the files and either upload them to the researcher's workspace or send the output to the researcher. When the researcher wants to remove output from the VDE, a memo in the project workspace is available, which provides instructions on what information should be provided to NetApp staff. To add community-created statistical packages or codes to a project workspace, a request can be sent to NetApp staff. These requests also must be approved. VDE users can request to upload files to their VDE workspaces at any time. Data or syntax files are typically requested. However, notes, abstracts, and data dictionaries are also requested and can be accommodated. To request a file upload, a researcher should send an email to NAHDAP-VDE-support@umich.edu. Please be sure to include the researcher's name, project ID, workspace if multiple spaces are used, and unique name in case of multiple users in a research team. The files should be attached to the email or, depending on the size or contents, a secure link can be used. Please include a brief description of the files and what their purpose is. NetApp staff will review the files to ensure they are functional, do not contain suspicious content, or appear corrupt. Once approved, staff will upload the files to the data user's workspace and notify the requester of the approval and upload status. To request file transfers out of the VDE, VDE users must go through a disclosure review process to ensure all the data remains secure. The steps for a disclosure request include: Step 1. Complete clearance memo in the Disclosure Review folder. Step 2. Place files to be released outside of VDE in the Output folder. Step 3. All documents that explain the files in the Output folder go in the Support folder. Step 4. Send an email to NAHDAP-VDE-SUPPORT@umich.edu. Include PI name, project ID, workspace, unique name, file names, and locations. There are a few notes regarding the disclosure review process. The target review period is 10 business days. A great deal of this time frame will depend on the size and the scope of the requested output, such as the total number of pages in the output files. We ask that each output request is limited to 50 pages. Changes or corrections that VDE users are asked to make in their requested output may lengthen the review time. For this reason, we also ask that VDE users only submit one request at a time before submitting subsequent ones. It is very helpful for all PathStudy VDE data users to keep in mind the do's and don'ts of requesting output releases from the VDE. Do: read the memo carefully and thoroughly. Provide complete details as directed in the memo, as well as unweighted counts and supporting documents with variable level information and code descriptions. Submit your request at least 10 business days in advance to allow for possible adjustments. Use labels to clearly present weighted and unweighted counts and other statistics, variables and values, and types of analysis. Confirm that your results meet the minimum thresholds noted in the disclosure review memo. Don't submit requests too close to the deadline. Include unauthorized details within the email text. Submit requests to release over 50 pages of output per request. Take photos of monitor, share screens, or take screenshots while in the VDE. Transcribe results or counts on paper or in electronic documents. Publish any output from the VDE without going through disclosure review process. Failure to comply with the terms of the Restricted Data Use Agreement may result in terminated RDUA, suspension of access to the confidential data, may require actions from the researcher and institution to resolve the violation before access can be reinstated. The researcher's institution may be suspended, meaning other researchers from the same institution may also lose access to the data even if they are on different projects. Restricted data use agreements are legally binding, and they have to be in order to protect the integrity of the restricted data use that is accessed through them. Data-related publications that used the PathStudy data are available on each of PathStudy Data Collection's homepage on the NADAP site. Having access to similar publications from other authors may be useful to a researcher. It can also create visibility for a researcher's publications and allows other researchers to reference them. After publishing their results, researchers may email their publications' citations to bibliography@icpsr.umich.edu, and their citations will be added to the Publications section of the NADAP website. Proper citation of the PATH study data is important. Researchers should provide the correct citation of the data they work with. Knowing the study and the data sets they are analyzing is a helpful first step. Researchers should provide the correct citation of the data they work with. Knowing the study number of the data sets they are analyzing is a helpful first step. The researcher should confirm the PATH study data collection used for analysis in their publications. RUF is ICPSR 36231. BRUF is ICPSR 36840. SCRUF is ICPSR 37519. PUF is ICPSR 36498. SCPUF is ICPSR 37786. Any of the PATH study homepages on the NADAP site will include a Cite This Study hyperlink, which can be found just below the title on the NADAP study homepage. This will include the study-specific DOI for the citation. There are different options offered for study citation. The image shown is a snapshot of the citation modal box that appears on any NADAP study homepage when researchers click on the Cite This Study link. The citation options are RIS, which is the generic format for RefWorks, EndNote, etc., and EndNote. Citations for the user guides are available and can be found in the Scope of Project section on each NADAP's study homepage. Citation is updated with each new version of the PATH study user guide. Researchers are strongly encouraged to submit citations to publications using the PATH study. Please use ICPSR's citation form at https://www.icpsr.edu/citations/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/submittal/sub biospecimen@icpsr.umich.edu. These next slides will provide an overview of the Biospecimen Access Program. What is the PathStudy Biospecimen Access Program? The PathStudy Biospecimen Access Program provides the research community with access to urine, serum, plasma, and genomic DNA, gDNA, collected from PathStudy participants. In terms of who may get access to the Biospecimen Access Program, investigators proposing meritorious and feasible studies consistent with PathStudy objectives or research priorities for tobacco regulatory science will be given the highest priority for access to these biospecimens. Proposals addressing other objectives that advance the knowledge of tobacco use and/or tobacco-related health outcomes will also be considered. Investigators wishing to access these biospecimens must follow the procedures under How to Apply for Biospecimens on the NADAP site. Investigators requesting the PathStudy biospecimens must submit a research concept statement and subsequently an application for review and approval by the PathStudy team. There are 2 submission and review cycles per year, so investigators are invited to submit their statements and applications for review 2 times per year. It typically takes 7 to 8 months from submission of a concept statement to notification of the application review outcome. The concept statement and application submission and review schedule shown on this slide provides dates of each stage for Review Cycle 9. See the website for updated information. For Cycle 9, concept statements are accepted from November 1st through November 30th, 2021. Decision notifications will be distributed by email no later than February 28th, 2022. The deadline for submission of applications is April 30th, 2022. Applications will be reviewed and decision notifications sent by email no later than August 12th, 2022. Let's briefly cover what researchers can access after their applications have been approved. Biospecimens currently available to PathStudy researchers include urine, including serial samples from the same participant over time, and blood collected from adults in Wave 1 and 2, and genomic DNA collected from adults in Wave 1. Please see Table 1 containing cross-sectional biospecimens available from adults in Waves 1, 2, and 3 shown on the slide. The Wave 1 data contain 19,666 urine biospecimens, 13,507 for serum, 13,936 for plasma, and 6,597 for gDNA. Wave 2 contains 11,959 urine biospecimens, 805 for serum, and 853 for plasma. Finally, Wave 3 contains 13,073 urine biospecimens, 775 for serum, and 799 for plasma. These tables will be updated as more biospecimens become available. The NADAPP site contains related resources that can give researchers more information on PathStudy biospecimens, including the collection and processing and storage protocols. These resources and any other information can be found on the PathStudy Biomarker Restricted Use Files BRUF page and in the user guide. The questionnaire data such as behaviors, attitudes, and health conditions are also available in the public use and restricted use files of the PathStudy data. Further, biomarker data for subsamples of PathStudy participants are available in the biomarker restricted use files. Participants were sampled to include tobacco product non-users and a diverse mix of tobacco product users based on self-reported data available in the questionnaire restricted use files and public use files. Other web resources for the PathStudy are also available on the NADAPP site. Specifically, the PathStudy series page contains additional resources such as the Frequently Asked Questions, PathStudy 101 video, PathStudy user forum, and quick access to questionnaires and user guides. The series page has been mentioned several times throughout this video, and NADAPP strongly encourages researchers to come to this page, especially since the For Researchers section lists valuable resources for the PathStudy data users. Finally, these last few slides will focus on information about data releases and updates. Join us on social media, connect with us, become a fan and like our page, follow us. Anything related to the PathStudy will be going up on NADAPP's Facebook and Twitter accounts shortly after any updates or new main releases occur. We share posts about upcoming events, new data releases, new publications, and NIDA news. Please feel free to engage with us and others in the comments or share the posts or tweets whenever you can. You may find NADAP's Facebook account at www.facebook.com/NAHDAP and NADAP's Twitter page at NAHDAP1. Anyone in the Path Study research community is welcome to use any or all of the resources available for any questions related to the Path Study. Send questions about access to restricted use data in our Virtual Data Enclave, VDE, to NADAP at NAHDAP-VDE-SUPPORT@umich.edu. You may also want to check out our VDE guide. For all questions about the collection, content, weighting, documentation, or structure of Path Study data, please email pathuserquestions@westat.com. For all other questions, please email us at icpsr-help@umich.edu or nahDAP@icpsr.umich.edu. This webinar was created by the National Addiction and HIV Data Archive Program, NADAP, and WESTAT in collaboration with the National Institute on Drug Abuse and Center for Tobacco Products at the Food and Drug Administration. This project is supported with federal funds from the National Institute on Drug Abuse, National Institutes of Health, and the Food and Drug Administration Department of Health and Human Services under contracts to NADAP, contract number 75N95019C00017, and WESTAT, contract numbers HHSN 271201100027C and HHSN 271201600001C. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope to hear from you soon, whether you may have questions or requests to use the Path Study data. Have a great day.